Good evening. Can you tell me your names again, please?
Mary Beth.
Mary Beth? Jeff?
Me?
Yes, you.
Cab like taxi.
Cab, okay. Here's the thing. I am a storyteller, although I don't really like that title. Monologist sounds like a made-up word. I guess storyteller does it. And my sister has worked for the Toronto Library for years, and she said, storytellers drive me crazy. They drive me crazy. They have all these weird tricks. They drop their voice, so you have to listen really carefully, and they can't answer a question in a straightforward fashion. So every time I say that, I feel a bit weird. Incidentally, storytellers don't do crowd work. Hi, crowd. But this environment is different in general. I mean, this place right here is different because it's a very open environment, and there is cameras every place. You can watch yourself after the fact and see what works or doesn't work. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up anybody, but I appreciate the fact that I showed up here, did a piece, and no one ever said, "Oh, that's great, come back in 2 months." It has always been very welcoming and so on. So since this is kind of an off-kilter evening, because it's a small crowd, but it's an interested crowd, can I tell you one or two stories? No. You get to choose. No! Ignore that. I know this dude. You can ignore this dude. I'm talking to Cab and the other two lovely people here. I'm going to give you a choice. I can tell you why I am taking up storytelling, or why I have done it, or I can tell you about when I met a celebrity that nobody is going to believe I met. Celebrity? Okay. Everybody's familiar with Marx Brothers? Everyone knows the fact that all of them have been dead for a very long time? Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Groucho lived longer than any of them. I think Chico died first. He was the heaviest smoker and the heaviest drinker. And Harpo had a heart condition. Zeppo stopped being in the movies early on and was an agent and also had a heart attack. Groucho didn't die until 1977. And I've got this very, very distant family connection with Groucho Marx. You can check this out if you want by calling my mother-in-law. She grew up in New Liskeard, Ontario, which is the middle of nowhere. One of the people she grew up with, and I don't know what her original last name was, but her name was Erin. And she always said she wanted to get out of New Liskeard, and she did. She eventually went to California and was an actor, and among other things, became the last companion of Groucho Marx. My mother-in-law hadn't talked to her for decades. They weren't in touch or anything like that. But it was this bizarre 6 degrees of separation with Groucho. And after he died, there was a horrible legal battle. Her lawyers said that she was a longtime companion. His family said she was a money grubber, and eventually she died a painful and lonely death. Let's get away from that part. This is about when I met Groucho Marx. Anybody still with me?
Yes.
Okay. I had no idea who Groucho Marx was other than watching cartoons. Because cartoons they made in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and even up to the 60s would be shown on TV when I was a kid. I was born in 1968. Yes, I am old. Thank you very much. And every so often, Bugs Bunny would put on a mustache and eyebrows and glasses and walk around doing Groucho. Everybody knows Groucho, right?
Yes.
Groucho, when he was performing, would do a tour of the Schubert theaters. Royal Alex in Toronto at the time was a Schubert theater. So they'd go to New York, Chicago, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver. None of this matters, right? Except for one thing. Groucho always liked Montreal. He liked it during the Great Depression, and he liked it during Prohibition because you could get booze there. And he could also practice speaking French, and he could practice speaking German, both of which he could do fluently. This just means that even when he was a very, very old man, he would occasionally go up to Montreal. 1973, I am 5 years old, going on 6, thank you very much. And I'm in Montreal with my grandmother. My grandmother grew up in Port Colborne, Ontario, which is not particularly far away from here. She just happened to like Montreal, and she wanted to take our family. So we took a plane there from Toronto, and my sister, mother, and father managed to have tickets that were actually guaranteed by the airline. The ones that my grandmother booked, for some reason, we got bumped from the flight. So we had to take a second flight, and I was sitting around with my grandmother. I'm 5 years old. I don't speak French. I've just seen all of Montreal's sights, and I end up walking around the airport, and at the airport is an old guy with a cane and a beret and the mustache and the glasses, and he's complaining. All I remember hearing him say was, I thought we were supposed to be out of here by now. I'm a lover of Montreal. That's my Montreal joke. Does anyone like it? And he's got 2 or 3 people around him who look kind of bored and are smiling patiently. And he just looks like an old guy, except to me, because I know the voice. I know every cartoon that's ever impersonated Groucho Marx. So my grandmother was sitting over there. There's nowhere for me to go. She can watch me. I'm kind of wandering over, and I keep hearing this voice, and I keep seeing this guy who every so often looks up and looks at me and wags his eyebrows. And eventually, I walk up to him very quietly, and I say, "Are you Bugs Bunny?" He takes a very long moment and kind of sits up and says, "No, but Bugs Bunny was me once." Now at this point, I wander back and grab my grandmother by the hand, and I'm taking her in his direction. She said, "Mike, what are you doing? Michael, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh my goodness." And he said, "Are you his date?" And she said, "I don't think so, Groucho." And he says, "You said the secret word." And the rest of it gets hazy, because they talked about Vegas, and she saw him there once with my great-grandfather, because he used to have money and he would go to places like Vegas. And I was still stunned, thinking, wow, I didn't meet Bugs Bunny, but I met the next best thing. And it kind of fades after that, but there was a handshake, and somebody said, "You could ask for an autograph." And he said, "I have to tell you the truth, young man. You see this? When you get old, sometimes your body wants to do things that you can't do, and this is how it makes it up for you. It gives you the shakes, and if you gave me a pen right now, I would just make a mess. But how about a handshake, young man?" Reached his hand out, and I shook the shaking, warm but very dry hand of somebody who is amused by all this. Like, not delighted exactly, but amused. And then the rest gets hazy. I remember leaving. I remember my grandmother smiling and saying, "Oh, did you believe? I can't believe that happened. We have to tell your mother. We have to tell everybody. But don't tell everybody at school. Don't tell people at school. Let me talk to you. Don't tell your mother before I do." You want to hold on to a memory. That's something definitely worth holding on to. So I hate to give you an anticlimax, because I'm not going to tell you whether this is true or not. You know why? Because I want to see what people do. And I'm not counting the usual suspects. 2 gentlemen in the front row who I've seen before, and of course the performer, and Jake, who's been nice enough to let me perform, and Dexter, who has been nice enough to also let me perform. And then, well, it was 3 strangers, now it's 2 strangers. Because I want to know what you remember from this story. Are you going to remember that you were in Hamilton some evening and you wandered into some place that looked a little bit different, and you heard a philosophical discussion? And does this feel good? And are you always going to wonder whether this kid, who has family in Montreal and in Port Colborne, and has been in the performing arts since he was 10 years old, and knows Marx Brothers material backwards and forwards, whether this was due to an influence or a story he had a chance to give on a slow evening? I don't think I have to tell you. But I will tell you that when you shake someone's hand and they are close to the end, but they have lived so much and been so accustomed to being yelled at or being praised or simply the art of misbehaving and having people say, that was wonderful, you won't forget that. And it's very hard to make that up. I personally would say impossible, but that's just me. Everybody here, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Mike Durbecker. Thanks, Mike. Take the mic, Mike. Do old people smell different? Is that true?
Depends how frequently they've washed.
I'm starting to smell different. No.
Am I crazy? Did you do Vlasic pickle ads?
I think so. Yeah.
He
Well,
didn't
the
do it, but
character.
they based it on him because
Yeah.
his estate sued at one point. I remember that much.
Why he knows all things Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
Stories either bullshit or real. I like the idea that he's probably had like thousands of people come up to him. He's never had anybody come up to him and said, "Are you Bugs Bunny?"
I think I could make a case.
Like, isn't that crazy?
That's pretty good. I tend to believe it happened. You seem to have this affection for older culture. I mean, we were born roughly the same time.
Yeah, I think
I notice on Instagram you're always posting really classic shots from like old TV shows, even before our time.
I just post stuff that
Yeah.
that amuses me. I belong to a bunch of user groups that either have old ads or old film ads, and I've always been. I was a film student, and I've been involved in film on and off.
Mhm.
So anything that just strikes me as off kilter, I would like to share, because sometimes people say that was funny, or why the
Yeah.
hell would you do that?
Well, it's a particular aesthetic. I like it. It's also like reminiscent of like Roy Lichtenstein paintings where you have like comic strips have been blown up, so that it's like, I don't know. It's like a 40s, 50s.
Yeah, that kind of op art.
Yeah.
My wife was a visual artist. My wife's a belly dancer,
Right.
um,
Awesome.
which is a weird long story because
Yeah,
she's
that's
because she's
Turkish
Welsh.
belly dancer. Yeah.
And is Egyptian, Rak Sharki, proper Egyptian. But she knows Turkish and Mauritian and Greek and all
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
She is very visually oriented. I can't draw a box to save my life.
Yeah.
We both were involved in theater and she loves film. I will watch movies from the 1950s that have this weird Technicolor that doesn't exist and it never did.
Yeah.
She finds it creepy.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
got those, I don't know, pastel almost because it's faded, but it wasn't necessarily like that at the time. It's kind of like a skewmorph from the past.
The movie
we have a
Guys and
different
Dolls is gray except for these weird pops of green, red, and blue.
Yeah.
And I watched it with her and she said, firstly, I hate the music. Secondly, this is bizarre. This is like watching sci-fi. And I don't disagree,
Well, a lot
but I
of-
think it's
a lot of
interesting.
Sci-fi in the 50s
Yeah.
and 60s were filmed with that. So it kind of has that palette.
But it's
I can
weird.
see that.
I wanted to tell this story because you never
Yeah.
know what comes up decades later.
I believe it.
And you never know what people are going to respond to. I don't know. You might walk out of here and think this guy's out of his mind or he's completely lying or maybe he's telling the truth.
Hmm. And Ellen Elda did him a lot too. You know, like on MASH.
Oh, yeah, on
He was
MASH, he always-
constantly doing.
I mean, everybody
Yeah.
riffed on Groucho at one
Yeah.
point. He was just difficult, completely charming, completely difficult man. He had a weakness for 22-year-old women, specifically 22.
Interesting. Yeah.
His, I think, 3 wives. He married them all at 22. Aaron Fleming, that was the name, was his last companion, and she was 22 when they met.
But how old was he?
He 70.
Ooh, yeah, that's a little weird.
He died the day after Charlie Chaplin. Sorry, no, he died the day after Elvis died.
I remember that day. I remember it affecting me. I was a kid, and Elvis kind of seemed like kind of alien. Like it's like he died. How could he die? He's such a like. It just seemed like a weird
Yeah.
character.
My mother went to the Elvis movies when they first opened in the 50s, and she said, I went just because I wanted to scream. I didn't really care about Elvis. I wanted an excuse to stand up and scream with teeny boppers. She went to Buffalo to see it, and they actually closed the theater. The owner came out and said, you're yelling too much. You're ruining my seats. This place is terrible. Shut up. And threw everybody out.
Whoa, yeah. I mean, that's part of the charm of going to an Elvis event is the craziness and the Beatles. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
And she had no patience for the Marx Brothers, but my grandmother always has. Always has. She passed away, but. And then there's this event, but don't tell anybody.
That's. We'll keep your secret. No. Let's take a poll. Oh, hi. How you doing? Nice to see you, Rick. I just saw you pop in there. Okay. Anything else to add? I mean, I feel like we could go a little bit over tonight because there's fewer people here. Yeah.
Anybody want to question me on this?
Yeah. Any questions about? Oh yeah. Who does everybody believe him?
It's 1973. I was born in 68, so I was around 5. I would have turned 6 in December, and this was in July. It was rainy.
So when people lie, they give you too much detail. Right.
Or do you want to trace back? Was it? You could be my guest. Trace if it was rainy in July in Montreal in 1973 in July.
See, he's really researched this lie. That's what it's starting to look like. Speak less. No.
Well, also psychologically, people you get nailed for lying. The first thing they say is, "Why would I lie about this?" That's not a denial, and that's not a statement.
That's true. Yeah.
And then, were you really watching Bugs Bunny cartoons at that young age?
Who? Of course.
Oh yeah, they were on reruns. Yeah, I watched
Yeah, Saturday morning after school, Channel 29, which was a Buffalo station.
WUTV. Yeah, I remember that.
I have an autographed picture from Tom Poston, Tom Poles, whoever.
Oh.
Yeah, Tom
Yeah.
Joles. Yeah, I have an autographed picture, which I sent away for. I think
I was amazed to find out he was also the weatherman.
Right.
I remembered that, but I thought he's got a sideline as a rocket ship captain. That's amazing.
You know about Groucho and Alice Cooper?
They were good friends. I mean,
Oh, did they play golf together? Yeah.
Yeah.
They-
He lived next door. When he couldn't sleep, Groucho would call Alice and tell him when to come over, bring a six pack. And
why not?
there were lots of pictures. Cooper said, I walked in full makeup, and I was ready to say, okay, this is an act. I'm actually, I'm a singer, and I lived here and there. And Groucho didn't bat an eyelash, and he said, "Oh, nice get up. Come on upstairs. Let's watch a movie."
I think it was a beautiful story, so I wanted to believe it's true.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't matter.
Well, it's dangerous, though. I mean, my whole sister's point about storytellers will mess with your head. Well, I don't do that, but I'm a weird one. I was an actor. I was a writer. I love stand-up, but I don't want to do it. And I'm kind of between the two worlds. I'd rather be somebody like Spalding Gray or like even Bob Newhart than the classic Canadian storyteller. This is going to be a very important story. I'd rather say, okay, I'm going to tell a story. If you think it's important, enjoy.
I'm trying to pick things out, because let's assume
Please.
that you're lying, right?
Sure.
So I'm going to assume that you're lying, and I'm trying to figure. So, yeah, when he did the cartoons, that would have been like in the 50s, right?
But he didn't do the cartoons. The cartoons riffed on him.
The voice. The voice of the cartoons in the 50s.
Yeah, but that's okay. Well, I watched it growing up in the 70s all the
But I'm saying
time.
he would have had a real crisp voice at the end of his life. A 6-year-old kid recognizing that. I think you're lying.
I don't know. I think the cadence would be the same. I think if he was,
You're
yeah.
old. He's got a crackly voice. There's no way.
Yeah, but who is
I don't know. Well,
less
let's roll the tape.
recognizable than Groucho Marx with the mustache, the glasses?
Yeah, we could see appearances of him in the 70s.
If you
But you could, yeah.
feel free to be anal retentive. He showed up on a Bob Hope TV special in 1976, and he looked awful.
Yeah,
I mean,
remember those days.
he was incredibly thin, which is what he looked like when I saw him.
Looked like a skeleton.
Yeah, and his voice was more, hey, Bob, what are we going to be doing here today? It didn't sound real. He also showed up on Welcome Back, Kotter. They filmed him, and then essentially the producer said, he looks like he's about to die. We can't show it on TV. But he had ups and downs.
And what year was that?
Welcome Back, Kotter was like
77.
like early in 77. He got more lively in 75 because he sued somebody. he gave interviews to a guy named Richard Noble, I can't pronounce it, who'd written a book about the Marx Brothers. He interviewed Groucho, taped everything, and then transcribed it. So Groucho told really dirty stories and lots of profanity and sued and said, no, you were supposed to like not quote me. And the book was withdrawn and then it came back. I didn't know about this until the 80s. Please.
The aristocrats.
Research on Groucho Marx?
No, only later
To
in life.
prepare the
though.
lie, he had to, right?
Well, I was wondering, is it because you met him and it's always been an interest in yours?
I leave that one to you. Let's just say that once I realized it was not Bugs Bunny, that went a long way. Not Bugs Bunny or not Heckle and Jekyll.
But the
who would show
voice
up.
was actually Mel Blanc, wasn't it? Is that am I remembering that right?
Yeah, when they in a cartoon it
So
would
it
have
was
to be-
somebody imitating them. Yeah.
All kinds of great, not just
Yeah.
Warner Brothers, anybody who's making cartoons like Woody Woodpecker.
And it was
Yeah,
the
he did a
70s.
bunch
There
of-
wasn't cable, so there were old movies being shown all the time.
They were all done 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You remember when Harpo died?
I wasn't alive when Harpo died.
He fell down the hole and was yelling for help for hours.
The worst thing is he never talked about it.
Those movies still hold up. Like The Big Store and
I haven't watched one in a long time. Or the other thing was the
surprised.
Most
Three
of them are.
Stooges is another one.
I
from
did.
there.
I sought them all out on Blu-ray because I wanted to know I had the best visual representation and the best audio and stuff like that. And it took me years, but I finally dug them all up.
Wow.
Duck Soup didn't make money at the time because everybody said it was crazy, that it was too crazy, and they got back on top after making Night of the Opera. Obviously, like from an early age, I've had a thing for Groucho.
And of course, he did the one, he's the guy who wouldn't join a club that had him as a member, right? That's kids.
Yes.
That,
My-
which, well, that's brilliant philosophy,
Right.
right? But that was kids.
A restricted club.
Popularized it.
They wouldn't let him in because he was Jewish, and he said, "Well, my daughter is only half Jewish. Can she wade into the pool?" I hope I've confused everybody rather than pissed them off.
Channel 29 also had Star Trek.
They had
That was the thing, and
Oh yeah,
yeah, Star Trek. was
Star
cool.
Trek, Twilight Zone, a weird black and white anime called Prince Planet,
Oh.
and a lot of spaghetti westerns. I still have
loved it.
friends.
Yeah, Good, Bad, and the Ugly. I remember watching that as a kid. Just blew me away. It was amazing.
I still have friends on Facebook I've known for 35, 40 years, and will occasionally say, I was watching Django, like the
The
original one.
original?
I think I watched this in your parents' basement before Star Wars came out because we were watching Space 99 and then spaghetti westerns.
I love
Once again, I am
Star
old. I do admit this.
Wars. I'm older.
Yeah, but you make it look great.
You're older than you.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you for encouraging my behavior, everybody.
Yeah, we should all be.
The other
playful.
story was going to be really, really serious and sentimental and emotional, but this was a lot more fun.
Awesome.
Every time we do like a 5-minute bit, it's like reading an excellent short story.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Thank
That's
you,
awesome. Yeah. Good praise.
Hey, I enjoyed that.
Tell you what, give me anybody here. Give me $500, and I'll tell you God's honest truth. Or maybe you already owe it to me because I've already told you God's honest truth.
God's honest truth. Wow. What does that even mean?
That is actually the best part of your story. Like, if you had just left it,
Hmm. It's a twist.
when you added this twist that I might be lying, that is actually the best part of the story. Because now I'm fighting against you. No, you're not lying. There's no fucking way.
A lot of the events, the storytelling events in Toronto, when I started doing this, part of the mandate was this has to be true. So anything I perform, I will always have this idea. I'm gonna do it, and then somebody I knew 10, 15, 20 years ago is going to go, "You're full of shit." And I want to avoid that. I mean, I change names and locations and stuff, but if someone thinks they recognize the story, they're probably wrong. But if the person in the story recognizes himself, I have to be ready to say, I stand behind what I said. That might give you a hint.
Well, then we're not going to pay you $500 anymore. I was about to reach in and give you $500, but now I know.
You said it might not be true, so that's, if it's not true, then that, you did stick to the truth.
Who knows?
Statement.
This is esoteric. Figure out who.
It's a,
I'll give you one
it's a
hint.
koan.
I want to see who voiced it.
I'll give you one hint. Who was interviewing Groucho in 1975, and where do they live?
Barbara Walters.
Dick Cavett was smoking, I think.
What other media figures?
Howard Cosell.
And he spoke.
Schneider, Burton.
He spoke fluent French.
Marshall McLuhan.
He didn't do much. Well, he was
And the
doing some
media
TV,
is the
yeah.
message.
Yeah. Not the massage. All right. Mike. Oh, there's another question.
Well, last question, sir.
Have you considered the possibility that there's a third possibility? That you think you know what the truth is, but that your memory has been revised by experience.
It's a postmodern film. Memento.
Why only three
Yeah.
options?
There are three. Listen, you post-structuralists.
Fukyo-yu.
There are three.
Well done.
There are three useful possibilities.
That this is true, that this is assumed truth by somebody
That
who
it's
has gotten
uncertain?
lost,
That it's uncertain.
That it's a lie, and that you have forgotten what is true.
which would be an unconscious lie.
No, it wouldn't be a lie if you genuinely believe it to be true.
Even if the
That's
instant
the
itself
whole
didn't
song.
take place.
Why?
If the okay, let's assume that this was a construction not willingly made on my part, but assembled by my subconscious.
Yeah,
If I were to say it, it would be true to me, but it would not be a verifiable event.
yeah, but that's a different possibility than outright lying to us. That's a third option.
Right.
You're with your mother,
Grandmother.
your grandmother.
Yeah, like she must
Your
have,
grandmother saw some old guy and goes, "Oh, that's Groucho Marx," and it's not.
yeah, 'cause
And so now you, as a 5-year-old kid, think you met Groucho Marx, but you never did.
But she's seen him perform in Vegas before.
And by
And
the
she's
way,
also seen him as Bugs Bunny.
she might have been
goes,
lying to you or
"Oh,
didn't.
that's the Bugs Bunny guy."
just on the
Okay. Well, did you ever talk about this with your grandmother after the fact?
Yes.
Yeah. So there must be some verification there. This is an epistemological exercise to see.
He's lying, right?
Why do you think I'm lying?
Well, or you're lying.
Well,
Maybe tell the truth, but you're lying.
he could be lying about his grandmother. Sure. He could make up the whole thing.
I don't go, or I could be lying.
Yeah.
The fact
I still don't believe it.
you allow leeway for
This whole thing is a postmodern film about truth.
Yeah, you asked him for evidence. Did
Yeah.
you talk to your grandma after? He said yes.
Yes.
And then
That alone is not evidence. No, but if there is, I didn't accept that. I said, if there is such evidence, then it would be valid. Yeah.
Did you expect existentialism this evening? Because you got it.
But we also don't know whether she was telling the truth or whether she
Oh, tell us.
is your grandmother still alive?
She passed away 10 years
How
ago.
convenient.
Wait. She has a theory. I want to hear this. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Of course. Would you like the mic?
She is Groucho Marx.
None of the people in the story would be able to challenge you on it.
Feel free to talk to my mother, sister.
Unverifiable.
My father also passed away.
Therefore,
My
nonsense.
aunts. Feel free to talk to them.
And a court of laws wouldn't work because none of them are there. None of them are there.
Yeah, 'cause it's
They're
hearsay.
relying on her, and she might not have had like capacity. When she
Yeah,
did it wrong.
you could give us the number of your mother, and we're calling some belly dancer from Wales.
It's an
There you go.
unfalsifiable claim. But we can't prove one way or another, really.
At the end of the day, there's nothing you.
I still think
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah, it sounds, it rings true.
I think the
Yeah.
belly dancer has been a lie.
Bye-bye. he met my wife. He has seen my
I
wife.
did, yeah. I haven't seen her do belly dancing, that's true.
I can go to her Instagram
She
and
might be
show
a
you.
doctor, you might be lying, I don't know.
No, he's not lying. I went to the park.
Yeah.
I went to the park to.
Oh, you saw the workshop.
I went to the park over here to sing, thinking no one would be around.
Hmm.
And that wife of his came and started belly dancing.
Wow, what a moment. Somebody,
Yes, so she definitely exists.
awesome, that's great, yeah, yeah.
You know how hard it is to have a belly dancer wife? I tell people that, and they go, they say, "Oh, Michael, your wife is a belly dancer. Does she live in Canada?" Yeah, well, we all live in Canada, but like I no, I have a flesh and blood. Come on, honey.
Someone I met in Kazakhstan online.
In
Matt,
Istanbul, yeah.
You don't know her. She lives in Kazakhstan.
I should try that. I'm gonna get off the stage now because this is getting weird.
Michael Durbecker.
You got further questions? Throw them at me. Thank you.
We're going to come back maybe. Let's see. Thank you. All right, I'm going to actually check the list. Up next.